Joining us on the How Did You podcast today is Josh. He's an absolute outstanding creative. He started his own media business, Get Your Media, and has assisted with Ben Pearson's channel, Beard Meets Food, and has lots of different reps underneath his belt for the amount of people he's created his content for. You are the mastermind and creative behind Ben's YouTube channel. How did you and Ben meet, and how did it become across that little old Josh was going to become a creative and start his own company? Was it a childhood dream?
No, it wasn't. I actually spent 8 years at sea. So I left school, started working like a regular job, and like, this is terrible. All I wanted to do was travel and see the world. And I joined the Royal Fleet Auxiliary, which is like an arm of the Royal Navy. Went through basic training as like a junior rank, and really enjoyed it. After a couple of years of traveling, did some deployments, transferred to become an officer, and that was like my career for 8 years. And then as it was starting to like come towards the end, I needed to come home now. I'd traveled the world, seen it all. I'm an engineer by trade. Then started really sort of delving into YouTube and marketing, and sort of that's what set me on this path of video. Fast forward, sort of nearly 4 years in business, I got put onto Ben by a guy called Danny Milo. So he's a radio DJ on, I don't know what he's done. I think he's on Pulse Radio now, but he's been on some like big radio channels, radio shows. He phoned me up one day to work with him in the sort of scene of media within Leeds. And it's like, oh, this guy Ben Pearson wants to start a podcast. Can you help him? And it was initially a case of, oh yeah, I'd like, what equipment do you need? It was a case I was just going to like, you need to get this mic, you need these headphones, use Zoom, basically what you're doing. I was like, that's all I thought it was. Having spoke to Ben afterwards, I realised I'd met him a couple of times when he were a copper. I'd met him when he were down I'd met him a few times, and I'd seen him on Interceptors. So I jumped on the Zoom with him, and he told me some of his stories, and I was like, this is not a podcast. Ben doesn't, like, he said it on your podcast, he doesn't really know what's what. He doesn't know the difference between a podcast, a video. Like, he's been a copper for 18 years, 19 years. So I said, this deserves the light of day. So initially it was more of like a charitable donation from my business. It would be me and my crew. We'll make you some videos. We'll set you up a YouTube channel. We'll just let you fly away. Do your own thing after that. But we knew that the first few stories needed to be done professionally, similar to like what Lad Bible had done, with the 22 minutes with or whatever. And that was the start of that. And obviously it blew up completely. You
mentioned that it blown up completely to the point where even Ben Francis of Gymshark is contemplating like how to shoot his videos because of your company and things like that. But you also mentioned during your videos that you'd look up to Netflix shows like Tiger King and Formula One, certain kind of shows. Is there any other shows that you watch personally?
I mean, a bunch of them. There's so many. I think you look at any Netflix documentary that's been shot recently, the amount of work that goes into it to make it look so good. I watched the one recently, The Tinder Swindler. Have you seen that? Have you seen that?
I haven't. No, not yet.
That's a very good documentary. But they're all shot like really sort of cinematic and really nice. And that's the sort of thing that I wanted to take into Ben's channel. But again, like weird to see Ben Francis tagging us and tweeting about what we've done with Ben's channel, and then they've took that style and put it into their channel. So to influence something like that from Gymshark, we're pretty mental. But I mean, we've not invented that style of shooting. Me and my team, like, it's just we took an idea and sort of put it somewhere else. So we're trying to take like a really professional look and put it onto YouTube, which I think people like. They expect a higher quality of aesthetics and audio now more than ever. But obviously, to go with that, you need to have the substance behind the content, which is what Ben brings. So I think it kind of been a perfect storm of us knowing exactly how to shoot and why to shoot in the way that we do. We also know how to scale and grow channels. Like, we know what the audience is looking for. So with the back end analytics, we know what we need to be doing and how we need to adapt to keep the thing growing. So Ben's been lucky in that sense that we've managed to come together. His stories are amazing, and he had a little audience at the time. It's just gone through the roof. He said he's recognised more now because of YouTube than he was on Interceptors, which is crazy. Yeah. So that shows you the reach on YouTube as opposed to mainstream TV.
Definitely. You mentioned that alongside your stories with Ben, you create content for other channels. But recently, I guess a strange experience was creating Rate My Takeaways music video.
Yeah, again, like, it's a small world, is this, especially in Leeds, in the Leeds area. I think when Beard myself and Rate My Takeaway sat down for our podcast, the Breaking Bread podcast, that was pretty much the Leeds YouTube scene right there, you know. I don't bring much to that as far as subscribers, but between them, they've got like 2 million subscribers, you know. And yeah, Danny just called me out of the blue. Probably it was late on. Obviously, we made a behind the scenes video explaining the process. We did sort of milk it a little bit and said it made it a little bit worse than it actually was, but it was a tight schedule, a tight turnaround. I can't remember where he got my number from. He got my number from somewhere, and it's like, now then, Josh, I need a music video doing, and I've heard you're the man for the job. And I thought, like, right, all right, it's for charity, let's do it. And then we did his, and then we had to go then do Beard Meets Food's Christmas video. They both came out really well. Both on, I wouldn't even call it a shoestring. They were done for free, like they were done on no budget, just a crew and some ideas. And they came out really well, made some money for charity. So he's a cool guy to work with, is Danny. He's mental. He is exactly what you see on YouTube.
That impression was spot on, I must admit. But obviously, like you just say, you mentioned Beard Meets Food. That must be a kind of, it's different in a way to Ben's content, but similar to Danny's content. How is it like, what is it like creating that kind of content? Because there's obviously different target audiences for different channels. How do you find that it's possible to deviate?
I mean, for like, so with Adam's content, so Beard Meets Food, like this is the amazing thing about him, right? I don't like to blow smoke up his ass because all I do is take the piss out of him. But he's a sole creator that's got his channel from like 0 to 1.7 million subscribers. Like, he didn't have a multi-channel network, he didn't have a crew, he didn't have a team. It's just him and his cameras. We only get involved in like the Christmas shoots, and if we're going to go like on a location together, so like we've done some challenges together before, I'll shoot a bit of B-roll for him, but he does 99% of it. Mm-hmm. And you know, every video that you see every week is just all him. So for me, the professional side of our business, where we create content for businesses, we've got to adapt every shoot anyway. So one week we could be working in the food and drinks industry, then we could be working in, you know, like heavy industrials. We could be working on like a building site or working in a warehouse. You know, the week after that we could be doing a music video. Mm-hmm. Like, it's totally transferable. Like, at the end of the day, we're just making videos. So the process of making a video is exactly the same, no matter which sector you're in. It's just obviously what you're shooting can change. So I think that's been quite good for what we do. But then again, we've taken that into our podcast and tried to make that production like as big as possible as well.
You mentioned that you've worked on lots of different channels, but your own channel garnered quite a few subscribers recently, and you create like how to do lighting, how to shoot this interview like a Netflix style. How have you found the reaction to your YouTube channel?
Really good. I mean, it's quite funny because my YouTube channel, it was never there to be, which people start YouTube, I guess, to think maybe like, oh, I become famous or I can do whatever. Everyone's got their own reasons for doing it. The only purpose of my YouTube channel from day one was to gain business. It was to expand the business. It's very much built on personal brand. So the idea of my channel was, if I can give away as much knowledge as possible, like for free, just everything I know about creating videos, creating filmmaking, whatever, that'll be the best advertising material I need for somebody to come and want to work with us. And that's exactly what it's done. So obviously I had a really good following. I had a following of like other creators wanting to learn how to make videos. And I'll get DMs all the time saying, thanks for sharing this, and how do you do that? I'll reply to them, and it helps sort of smaller creators or smaller freelancers navigate that world of how to shoot video. But from the reason for it was mainly for the bigger companies that don't want to create their own videos. He knows what he's doing. I showcase the team on the channel. I want them to do it. And if you look at from a business standpoint, if you look at a buyer's journey, they're going to do the research before they approach a company or a supplier. With that channel, anybody that lands on it can look at it and go, yeah, they know what they're doing, they can do the job. Let's get them in. You know, it makes the sales so much easier. So that was the reason for that channel. It wasn't to become sort of famous or to become a massive YouTuber. Like, it's got 6,000 or 7,000 subscribers. That's plenty. You know, it's the proof's in the pudding. It just does what it needs to.
You created Get Your Media for, like you say, to help businesses and companies create their own kind of video production, however you want to look at it. But what was the sole reasoning behind the name of Get Your Media? Was it as simple as, here you go, we can do it for you, here's your media?
Yeah, pretty much. It were a bit of a lazy. It just sprung to mind. It wasn't. I don't like when people start their own businesses. They get really protective, and it's like their baby. And I've never been really protective over the business. It's more like just a vehicle, like it's functional to sort of do what it needs to do. The real reason I set up Get Your Media was anybody that's in business or that's thinking of starting business might like this is a bit of a story. So I had a mate who were a freelance videographer. So let's say we'll call him John Smith. Let's say he'll call himself John Smith Media. That's what a freelancer would do, or John Smith photographer, or John Smith videographer. A freelance videographer or photographer might charge a day rate of, let's say, £200, which is like, it's a lot of money. It's more than you get paid in a regular job. Mm-hmm. And I remember as soon as my mate, it's actually called Josh, the other guy. I remember when Josh said to me, he was like, "Oh yeah, I get paid £200 as a freelancer." I'm like, "Fucking hell, £200? Somebody's paying you £200 a day to shoot a camera?" And he's like, "Yeah." And I'm like, "Who can afford to pay you £200? I like a production company." So if you're charging £200, how much are they charging for you to go work on their behalf? They're supposed to be charging £500, £600. So like, let's just skip the freelancer stage and just become a company and charge 3 times the amount. It'll get us close to the mark, and we'll have more of a budget to make better productions. And that was literally the start. Like, I started off from day one, Get Your Media production company, even if it was just me. So it meant as a freelancer, I could charge not 200, I could charge 500 or 600. And then that meant I could obviously quickly sort of grow to get a team and get staff, better equipment, studio. So that's what accelerated it. So like anybody that's in business that listens, like, might hear that and go, "Oh, actually, that could reflect in whatever sector they're in." So it was quite a sneaky, creative way to just sort of jump the queue, as it were.
You mentioned that you've now got a team. How many people are working for you?
4 of us at the minute. And then we're bringing freelancers for whatever else we need. So the industry is built on freelance professionals in whatever sector, whether it's a sounder, gaffers, like DOPs, like whatever it is. 90% of those jobs we can do in-house, because it's mostly marketing material for relatively small to medium-sized businesses. But then obviously for larger scale productions, we can bring in more of a team. But yeah, there's 4 of us. I've got an account manager. I've got another shooter. So Mike, who you'll hear on the podcast, is like in the corner. I've got an editor as well. So there's 4 of us.
What do you see is next for you on a personal level? Will it be Get Your Media expanding into maybe like different cities, or will it be maybe when I spoke to Ben, he mentioned the podcast that is potentially up and coming or will be coming soon. Is it that, or is it something that you may even go further and create like a Netflix documentary of, say, I don't know, a YouTuber's journey?
I don't know. I mean, like, to be honest, I'm absolutely flat out at the moment with just YouTube content and the client work we've got. So obviously, myself and Beard have got the Breaking Bread podcast. We're releasing weekly on that. So there's a lot of work there, which means like my editor's pretty much working full time on that. Ben, we're starting a podcast on Ben's channel. I know you didn't mention it on your. He touched on it on your guys' podcast. It's happening. So like, but he's asked me to co-host it with him, and like I don't know how much you told me, but like, I was pretty reluctant. I'm like, I don't have like time.
You're going to be busy.
How much work goes into, yeah. I'm like, you know how much work goes into prepping for a guest, like getting to understand them, getting some questions together. Mm-hmm. And Ben's like, I know, it's like, I want it to be really relaxed. And I'm like, yeah, it can be relaxed, but there's also an element of, if you don't do your research, you're going to come unstuck quick. Oh, it's just offensive. Like, it's just outright offensive. If you've not done your research on a guest, you just think, oh, wing it. It ain't going to work. And he ain't like that. He's going to do his research. But obviously, I have to do my own research. Yeah. So if I'm recording 4 times or 5 times a month with Adam, and then I'm doing, we've got six guests booked in this month for Ben. That's 11 or 12 podcasts there in February, mm-hmm. which is only like 28 days. There's not a lot of time. So, to be honest, all my time is pretty much dedicated to Ben's channel, the podcast, and then all of the side projects that go on with that, the management of them channels, thumbnail design, editing, managing the team, and then we've actually got client work to do as well. So answer is, I don't know how I'm going to do it. Like, I don't know what's next. I don't know how I'm going to do it. I'm just sort of rolling with it for now because it's fun, stressful, but it's good. It's what I wanted to do when I first sort of set out on this. It wasn't to become like a massive production company. It was the YouTube scene was always where I wanted to be. So it's really cool that we're actually doing it.
You spoke about how you've been in the army and had a military career. If you could, would you create a TV show on the real grit and determination behind it all?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of, I think a lot of that's been covered on a podcast, but I think it'd be cool to see. I don't know, it's been done on it. I mean, if you look on like Channel 4 or Channel 5, do the documentaries where they'll go into like the Royal Marines basic training, all that sort of stuff. Like, I find them shows fascinating. Currently on I think ITV, there's the Life on a Warship. I don't know if you've seen that. Yeah, where it's like every week it gives you an update on what's going on the HMS Northumberland, chasing down the Russians. Like, I think that style of content is amazing because it's just reality TV in like a real life, like, military environment. I think if you were to join the military now and they allowed you to have that sort of transparency to make your own content, that'd be a really cool way to do it. There's been an American guy called Nick Bear. He's got a YouTube channel. It's all about fitness and supplements. But he was a Royal Marine captain, not a Royal Marine. They were in the Marines in America. He was a captain that did a lot of footage whilst he was on exercise and doing all the tours. And then he took that as he transitioned out of the military and into business. That served him really well as a tool to have his market material. He's come from the military. Now he's he runs a supplement company. There's all these like wild, adventurous sort of tours across America. It's a perfect transition if that were the sort of way you want to create content. It's cool, man.
You've spoken about how you've created lots of different content for whether it be small, medium, or large businesses. What kind of experience do you take or go to straight away if somebody asks you what's your biggest experience or most memorable experience?
What comes to mind straight away is, and like I sort of look back on rose tinted glasses. I don't know if it's because it was the time of growth within like what I was doing within my career, or but just before COVID, so 2018, 2019, whenever I can't remember when it started. We shot a bunch of content at the Badminton World Championships, which sounds proper shit because it's like, who watches badminton, right? But we got a contract to go shoot. So the week of the event, we basically had to make this nightly show, roundup show, explaining what had gone on during the day, and then we're all going to get distributed online onto YouTube. But leading up to that, we had to shoot a bunch of filler content. So if you imagine we had presenters that week that were explaining what was going on, there's obviously like cutaways where it was like, and we spoke to so-and-so when they were at the World Championship in France. So leading up to that event, we had to travel all over England and all over Europe to visit all these athletes, good medalists. Badminton's a really entertaining game. So we had to shoot all these cutaway segments. And one of the places we went to was Manchester United. So Dan James was playing for Manchester United. And him and his brother are like huge badminton fans. Again, like, who knew? Like, I didn't think anybody liked badminton. So we got to go shoot. And you're talking like at a time when, I was basically a freelance. I think I had one person working for me, and then I had mates that were in the industry. We got to go to Manchester United, shoot with Dan James, conduct an interview. Again, there was like no budget. I had 2 cameras. I had one of my cameras was on a light stand, right? It was literally like screwed into a light stand. And it was like pointing at me. That's on that video is on my YouTube channel. Like, I meeting Dan James, shooting at Manchester United. I interviewed him with the questions that badminton had given me, and then that made it into the cut. So I think like that is like I still look back at it and go, that's probably one of the best things I've done as far as like just completely different world, like this wild world of badminton. I was going through that growth in business, and I was interviewing Dan James, who's like a Premier League football player. I still look back at that and go, that was mega that. So I got to travel around country. I got to go to France with my mates. Like, I all got paid for it and made some good content out at the end of it.
Where do you see yourself personally in a year? Because obviously, like you say, you're based out of Leeds and it takes you all up and down the country. Do you see yourself maybe potentially moving out of Leeds and going down into London for some potential other opportunities? Or do you think because of Ben, because of Adam, because of everything that's currently based in Leeds, you'll stay in Leeds?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, there's no need for us to. There's no need for me to move anywhere else. We actively avoid London like the plague. It's such a. It's a pain to get down. It's a pain being there. It's a pain to move around down there. Everything we can do is in Leeds. Like, a lot of the media world has come to Leeds. Like, Channel 4's in Leeds now. So like, we'll always be based there. If we already travel all over the country, obviously we went down to see Jack, mate, twice. I went down with Ben. I went down with Adam. So there's always stuff going on in London that'll take us there for work or for whatever reason. But we won't move in our Leeds. I think, I've got a family in that now. I've got, married, got a kid. I'm not going anywhere. This is me now.
What was it like going down to the Happy Hour studios? Because obviously, in your video, it was quite a journey. It was a whole different experience. You managed to watch the show whilst you were actually there. Do you imagine that this will be something that you will take on board?
Yeah, I mean, it were interesting to see how they shoot it. Because, I mean, like, the actual aesthetics of theirs is it's not massively high end. You know, what was nice to see is that obviously the audio quality is there. They've got like this little studio, and it automatically switches between cameras. So there were a lot of stuff that would like automate to make their life a lot easier. And I looked at that and I'm like, that's probably the way to do it. But then again, I sort of expected more. Like, the fact that they're still in that one studio for all these years, it was, when I went down with Adam, he's absolutely sweltering. So it's in like a little service office building, and they've built a box within the building that's obviously insulated so that it's soundproof, but it was like an oven. And I look back and I'm like, this week they've had Johnny Knoxville in, they've had Ricky Gervais, they've had all these celebrities in that one sweat box. I'm like, surely there's got to be a better way to do this, But I don't know the logistics. I don't know the deal with Spotify. I don't know who's paying for that studio. I don't know if they can move it. I've no idea. But yeah, I mean, like, the simplicity of their setup is admirable for just to churn it out. So I think I need to adopt a little bit of that into our production, because at the minute it's like very labour intensive.
Where do you think the possibility of Adam's channels or Ben's channels could go? Do you see, excuse me, do you believe that they could possibly turn into like a TV show episode? Or because a lot of people nowadays want to become YouTubers or creatives, something like that. And your content is pretty much at the forefront because it represents quite a few channels. Do you think that if you ever got approached by a TV channel to work on a YouTube series, that it'd work as well as it does on YouTube?
What comes, like, the problem with this is, right, the sticking point with all these channels so Adam, for example, Adam's channel, or a channel of Adam's size, would never make sense for on television, because there's no way that there's not enough money in TV, basically. TV's in my opinion, is going to die, because I've met far too many TV producers that have asked many people I know to do stuff for free or for like ridiculous sums of money, like tiny sums of money. The amount of money you can earn on YouTube just from AdSense, if you get the numbers right, it'd make, like, your audience that I'd fall off if I told you some revenue numbers that I know from bigger channels. It's unfathomable amounts of money. Like, there's people earning yearly salaries in a month. Mm-hmm. Like, that's how big that you can earn on YouTube. And then you've got all these side projects. I think it's called Have a Word podcast. There's a couple of Scouse lads called Have a Word. They put a tweet out the other day saying, we've hit 9,000 patrons. Well, do the maths, like 9,000 patrons at $5 a month. That's a mad amount of money, isn't it? So, even £3 a month, it's like £27,000 a month just on Patreon. Never mind AdSense, never mind all these things. I think mainstream telly is going to die. It costs too much to make. Nobody really watches it. Danny from Rate My Takeaway does the Steph's Pack Lunch on Channel 4. That had a headline when it first came out that it was the only live TV show, like lunchtime show, that recorded 0 viewers throughout the whole broadcast. So like 2 hours of live broadcast, it recorded 0 viewers. So how can mainstream like TV keep up with YouTube? Mr. Beast, he recently did the he did a remake of Squid Game, didn't he?
Mm.
So like that Squid Game episode that Mr. Beast made has got more viewers than the whole series on Netflix. That's the creator economy. Like, people are still thinking like it's not going to catch on. Like, YouTube never catch on. It's already like been and gone. And like, advertisers need to put the money off television into YouTube creators. That's it. Like, it's the only way to go.
I'd be interested to now know that your opinion on, say, like you say, Squid Game TV show or series, however you want to look at it, is been adapted onto YouTube, and it's arguable that some people would say that, say, Adam's content is an adaptation of Beard Meats Food. It's like you see the Sidemen doing The Chase. Do you think that eventually it will turn to the point where YouTubers are frequently on TV, or TV shows just adapt to YouTube because that's where their audience is going to be?
Yeah, I think what you said there, like TV shows will adapt to YouTube. So even interview shows, so like Hot Ones, you know, with that Sean Evans eating hot wings, they've sort of, you actually see it where some of them productions will go back to telly but then come back to YouTube. So I think a lot of ideas, if the budgets are correct, could work really well on YouTube. It massively depends, but I think the way that it's going, it's all going to be on YouTube. You know, TV's not going to go anywhere, but the eyes are on YouTube, so advertisers need to probably look more over there. If you see potential in channels or potentially creators, put your money where your mouth is.
If you had to give one bit of advice to sum it all up, whether it be within the media, life advice, because of the experiences that you've had personally, what kind of experience and advice would you give someone?
I think for creators coming up, just get used to just grinding out some content, and then once you've got a base of content on your channel, then you can start worrying about like the like nuances of audience retention and where your audience is coming from and things like that. Just get a base of content out and then start sort of paying attention to it. I think one thing to bear in mind is like, it's a savage world on YouTube, so like no one cares. And if you can go into that, like remember that no one really cares to begin with, and your content can sort of reflect that. A lot of people can make assumptions. Welcome back to the channel, you know. But you might remember last week we did X, Y, and Z. Most of the viewers on that video won't have actually seen what you're talking about. So just get straight into the action, you know, and know your worth. There's a lot of chance in agencies out there, like talent agencies, you know, sponsors. They'll want you to do stuff for no. They'll expect the world. We got approached by a company. I won't say what it is. It's a male grooming brand, and I think the email actually they put something like, "We're going to give you the opportunity to work with us with a test pilot link for your audience to get like 10% off." And I messaged them back saying, "What, sir? You think?" I thought something like, how are we going to like get a test pilot of your product when we've got an audience of all these thousands of people? Like, why would we do it for free? Like, it makes no sense. It costs us literally like probably £1,000 an episode to make these videos. Why would we do it for free? So then they came back and offered us like 150 quid. I was like, one of your ball shavers costs like 90 quid. You think across 3,000 men that watch this podcast, we're not going to sell more than 2? I was like, you know, shove it your ass. So know your worth. Like, if someone's offering you 200 quid to make a video or whatever, do the maths, like how much time is involved in that. Like you know how much time is involved in the prep for these podcasts, you know how much time is involved in scheduling, thumbnails. That time, you know, if you're not working on something else and working on that, your time needs to be paid for. So just know your worth and don't let these big agencies try and push you around. We're for the little creators.